In a forest far, far away lived a tiny squirrel named Sammy. Sammy was the smallest of all the squirrels in his family, but what he lacked in size, he made up for in heart. While the other squirrels gathered nuts and chased each other up tall oak trees, Sammy spent his days dreaming of adventures.
Dreaming of adventures.
One bright autumn day, the forest was buzzing with excitement. The annual Great Forest Race was just around the corner and all the animals were getting ready to compete. The race was the biggest event of the year, with participants from every corner of the forest. The winner would be crowned the bravest of them all.
Sammy's older brother, Max, was the fastest squirrel in the forest. Everyone expected him to win the race, as he had done for the past 3 years.
But Sammy had a secret dream. He wanted to race too. He knew he wasn't the fastest, but he had something special that the others didn't have. A big heart full of courage.
A big heart full of courage.
The night before the race, Sammy sat under a starry sky thinking about what his mother had always told him.
True bravery isn't about being the biggest or the strongest. It's about doing what's right, even when you're afraid.
With that in mind, Sammy decided that he would enter the race.
I will enter the race.
The next morning, the forest was alive with excitement. Animals of all shapes and sizes gathered at the starting line. Max was there, looking confident as always, but when he saw Sammy, he frowned.
"What are you doing here, Sammy? This race is too tough for you. You should go home."
But Sammy stood tall and replied,
I may be small, but I want to try. I want to show everyone that even little squirrels can be brave.
Max shook his head, but he didn't argue. The race was about to start, and he had to focus on winning. As the whistle blew, all the animals took off, racing through the forest. As Sammy ran, he noticed something unusual. Up ahead, there was a narrow bridge that crossed over a fast-flowing river. The bridge was old and rickety, and it swayed dangerously in the wind. The other animals were already crossing it, but they were struggling to keep their balance.
Suddenly, Sammy heard a loud cry. It was Max. He had slipped and was hanging onto the side of the bridge, his legs dangling over the rushing water below. Max was terrified and couldn't pull himself back up.
Without thinking, Sammy dashed toward the bridge. He was scared, but he knew he had to help his brother. When he reached Max, he grabbed onto his brother's paw with all his might.
Hold on, Max, I've got you.
With all the strength he could muster, Sammy pulled and pulled until finally Max was back on the bridge. The two brothers hugged each other tightly, both relieved and grateful.
"Thank you, Sammy. I didn't know you were so strong."
It's not about being strong, it's about being brave.
The two squirrels carefully made their way across the bridge together. When they reached the other side, they saw that the race was still going on, but neither of them cared about winning anymore. They had something much more important, each other. As they walked back to the finish line, the other animals cheered for them. Word had spread about how Sammy had saved his brother, and everyone was amazed by his bravery. When they reached the finish line, the forest elder, a wise old owl, flew down to greet them.
"Sammy, you may not have won the race, but you have shown us all what true bravery looks like. You are the bravest squirrel in the forest."
From that day on, Sammy was no longer known as the smallest squirrel. He was known as the bravest, and his story became a legend in the forest.
And every year, when the Great Forest Race came around, the animals would remember Sammy's courage and remind themselves that true bravery comes from the heart.
And so Sammy, the brave little squirrel, lived happily ever after, always ready for his next adventure.